At some point, I need to stop opening these episodes with, I know it's been a while, I haven't posted in a few weeks or months, but here I am, I'm back. But that seems to be the trend, and I'm okay with that. Especially in this like hustle culture of creating content and just like creating it to say you published it. I really want to be intentional that everything I create has a purpose, if only because I want to, right? I'm a manifesting generator with a 3-5 profile, and I am going to be someone who is always trying new things, who is always changing their mind as soon as I have new information, and someone who really just kind of does what I want. As soon as there's like a structure in place, the whole process becomes unsexy, and I just like don't want to do it. So if I'm here, I want to be here, which I think is a really beautiful gift. I'm never just going to create something just because my calendar said I had to create it, or because it's been a week or 2 weeks or 2 months or 3 months since I have since touched the project. But here I am. And I think a lot has happened since I was here last. And I kind of had an epiphany of sorts last night. I had a really deep meditation at an event that I was attending. It was a cacao ceremony with sound healing and breath work, and you kind of go on your own journey. And in this meditation, I was aiming to heal something very specific, which I may talk about later. But something came up afterwards upon me reflecting what I saw and heard and experienced during that meditation, was that I unintentionally, or kind of intentionally, I guess, don't relay the full truth of my experience. Because let's be honest, I read tarot and I do energy work and I see lots of shit in meditation, and it's weird, right? Not to me, but I know a lot of people won't get it, and they might doubt me. And it wasn't triggering in the moment, but I could see my past timeline in front of me, like, oh, all my childhood trauma shit around not being heard and not being believed is showing up in my work today. And while I'm not traumatized by not relaying information, but there is a little fear about being fully honest about what happens when I meditate and what happens when I'm having this spiritual experience with myself, with my consciousness, and all the things I read and listen to. And so I'm approaching this podcast episode today with that in mind. And when I started this podcast, it's got to be about 2 years ago now, it was with the purpose of recognizing that I needed a way to exercise and flex my throat chakra, and a way to express myself without having the pressure of seeing people's reactions. Really. Which is really funny, because a few weeks ago, someone who I know in person stopped me and was like, oh, why haven't you recorded a podcast episode in a while? I want to listen to it. Where are you? And I was like, oh, people are listening. People are there. It's something that I always forget, which I kind of like, because I don't feel the pressure to perform for people, which is something I often feel in the tarot and energy workspace. I love that work, but I can tell when people kind of want me to be the show monkey, and I'm not here for that. I'm not here for it. The intention that I want to come to someone with is not there. When they want me to kind of show off what I can do, I'm like, no, that's not what this work is for. You got some work to do, and I don't think you're ready for me quite yet, which is fine. And so you will experience me trying lots of new things. And I used to be really self-conscious about that part of myself, about changing my mind, about trying something for a month or two or a year or two and then dipping out. And honestly, like I said earlier, it is just part of my human design. I need to experience things in order to know if it's for me or if it's not for me. And I need to experience things in order to make something else work for me better. And not everyone runs this way. I recognize that. That's why I get so self-conscious about it. Not much anymore, but that's why I used to get so self-conscious about it, because I could see people perceiving me as being unstable or wishy-washy or not consistent, right? Because I'm jumping from maybe designing letterpress stationery to doing photography, to doing graphic design, to doing marketing strategy, to doing energy healing and meditation, and you get it. I do a lot of different things, but I'm also a Gemini moon and a Gemini Mercury. And as soon as I have new information, I immediately take that as a permission slip to change my mind. As soon as there's new information, I'm not going to be stubborn about it. I'm going to be like, oh, shit. Okay, now we're going this way because I learned something new. I really take advantage of that information and use it to move forward. Speaking of moving forward, one thing that I wanted to touch on today and that I have been thinking a lot about recently is this idea of living with regrets. And we're all human, right? I'm sure you can think of one or two situations in your life that you wish did not happen or you wish happened another way. And the problem is that when you wish something was different, you are inherently living in the past and you are avoiding what is, right? Because you're hyper fixating on what woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? And being upset that it wasn't what you wanted it to be. And your energy just kind of ruminates on that, and it sits on it, and it festers, and it gets stuck in the wheels of your chakras. And what this does is it prevents you from moving forward. It prevents you from accepting what is. I think in the last episode we talked about this, not theory, but this concept of impermanence, that nothing ever stays the same. But if you expect something to remain the same over and over, you are bound. You are so bound and chained to be upset about it. You're bound and chained to living unhappily and unsatisfied because of your sole intention to deny impermanence, to deny that things change, to deny that people change, to deny that that one thing happened. But the beautiful thing about the human experience, and I think it's the main or maybe the only reason why I don't have regrets, why I don't live in the past, is because I can fully recognize that without those past experiences, I would not be where I am today. I would not know what I know today. And this wasn't always easy for me. I think in 2021, I was in a group mentorship, like spiritual group with a bunch of girls. We were working on like self-confidence and self-awareness and trauma healing. I came to a point in this program where I realized that some of the qualities that I like about myself, some of like the best qualities I like about myself, my sense of responsibility, my sense of work ethic and dedication and like drive to just do a really good job, wouldn't be there if it wasn't for this person who caused a lot of turmoil in my childhood, right? And when I realized that I would not be who I was or who I am today without that person doing all those things to me, without me experiencing all that yuckiness in my body, all the unhappy feelings, all the anxious, all the depression, all the sadness, all the feelings of not belonging, if it were not for that person, I would not be who I was today. right? And at that point, I would rant and rave about how I wish I never happened. I wish it happened differently. I wish that person was never there. And I really had to accept that those things happened to me, and accept that even though my experience was bad, right, from my child perception, even though my experience was bad, that person inherently did me good, because in the end, I liked how I turned out. And I did not like this at first. I, in fact, hated it. I was so angry when I came to this conclusion that I would not be who I was today if it were not for this person. I was so angry. And I really had to sit with those emotions and allow them, right? Allow them to be there. I had to recognize them for what they were and just let them be. And eventually, I found the compassionate acceptance that I didn't know I needed, but allowed me to move on. And I think that was the biggest, maybe, moment that I've had in my healing journey, where I could recognize that, oh, I don't think I regret anything anymore. I can see the purpose in those bad events, those bad people, and the bad experiences, because it shaped who I am today. Our ego wants to disengage from anything that is unpleasant, right? We want to push it aside. We want to avoid it. We want to say, oh, they disagree with me and so they're wrong. And it's this journey of recognizing that unpleasant experiences don't have to be bad, right? We can learn from them. We can grow from them. You might not know exactly how right this very second. But if you continue to deny their existence by fighting with it, by saying, no, 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 don't you dare fucking show up in my life. How could this happen to me? Oh my gosh. As soon as you start falling into that trap, you are feeding it. And then your emotions become stronger. And then you start to see proof or evidence that your ego is correct, because your ego wants to be reminded over and over and over that how you feel deserves to be validated, right? It's kind of like that car analogy where you decide you want a yellow car and all of a sudden you see all the yellow cars. It's the same exact principle. If you decide you're upset about something, if you decide that this thing should not have happened to you, you are only going to sink your claws into that situation and the emotions that fuel that situation, and you'll be given proof, more evidence, more energetic happenings that match that same vibration. And you will be stuck there. You will be stuck there until you acknowledge what you are doing, how it isn't serving you, and until you accept what is. Until you accept, okay, this is a really shitty thing right now. Okay, what's next? Until you accept, oh, that person did some really shitty things, but now I know better. And then move on. And when you can allow yourself to move on, I think that's really when this idea of regrets becomes not needed. Because if everything is a learning experience, why would you regret anything? Because the more you learn, the more you know, the more you transcend, the more you ascend, the more you grow. And it's when you grow, that's when you start to foster this relationship with your intuition, with your higher self, which I don't really love the term higher self. Like it's a really common term. I'll give it that. But I've been playing around with this term in the new program I'm building called Change Your Life. And I kind of have been wondering if I should use the term higher self. When I say the word higher self, or when I picture what exactly that means, it feels as if it appears that entity is something different or separate from who you are. And that's just not the truth. Like, it kind of feels like this like ball of white light that is you, but like isn't you. And you like purposely have to call on it, bring it into your heart space or into your third eye or into your crown, and then it's there. And then once you're done, it kind of just like goes away. And so I've kind of been challenging that identity for a couple months now and wondering what is a better term that could encompass that while still allowing the present you to be present, like the 3D physical you with a body, your mind, and everything else that encompasses that. How can those two merge? And so I've been playing with this term, the eternal self, which probably isn't a lot different than higher self. But when I say the eternal self, it makes me think of my soul. It makes me think of this part of me that is always present, right? Whether I'm living or dead. It's this part of me that is connected to myself, but also the divine. It's this part of me that is part of the universe and all the mechanisms and all the movements and creation of the universe because it is eternal. And for some reason, to me, it feels more accessible than higher self. And right, this is perhaps really ego-based, actually, now that I'm saying it out loud. Because like the ego needs identity. The ego needs words. Like me trying to find the right word is very ego-based because I want it to feel and mean exactly what I want it to feel and mean. I'm recognizing that. But for some reason, higher self just feels like it's much more easily separated from who you are right now, this very second, versus the eternal self feels to me that it's something that is completely encoded in like not only your DNA, but like the infrastructure of your soul within the ether. And like it is everywhere and it is everything. And now you see why I mentioned earlier how I don't always speak my mind to the fullest extent because I recognize that what I just said was probably a little weird. And that's okay. Weird isn't bad. Weird isn't bad. Weird is perhaps just outside the norm. And I know, and you probably know, that what I am teaching and what I am practicing and what I believe in is not something that people talk about on the street. It is not super common right now. I do think we're kind of like on the rise and people are beginning to get curious about what else is available to them, how they can take charge of their own lives, kind of bringing in more spiritual autonomy. I do think that is on the rise. And so I won't always be the weird one, I guess is what I'm saying. But something that I always find really important is being able to blend this 3D, like physical, real life experience with the spiritual. Like I love the spiritual. I love talking to spirit guides. I love to sit in meditation for, I want to say hours and hours. I don't meditate for hours and hours, but for like 20 to 30 to 40 minutes. Like I want to sit there and experience all the cool shit that happens in meditation. And I want to talk about lifetimes and time and space. And at the same time, I recognize that that can feel really inaccessible to the everyday person. That might feel really inaccessible to you because it's like so far out there. And I think one of my gifts is being able to really ground everything into how it works in your real life and like, why would you want that? And how can you be spiritual and include those spiritual practices while remembering that you are still human and you have like a real life to do. You've got a real life to live, right? We're not just living in the ether, as fun as that sounds. There's still this recognizing that needs to be present, that you are human and that we're not just taking guidance from gods and goddesses because we're choosing to do deity work. We're not choosing to ignore your physical experience because the spiritual seems so much better. Like there needs to be a balance. Which brings me to why I'm creating Change Your Life. It's this beautiful, beautiful program that is based on the blueprint of my exact healing journey. And I've been healing consciously, proactively since about 2017. And I've put together the strategies and the techniques and the practices that allowed me to make the most progress in order to be where I am today, in order to believe what I believe today, in order to have the experiences and the calm that I have today. I'm about halfway done with creating the program, and I truly believe that this will be my most important work to date, if not ever, because it teaches you how to live and acknowledge your experience completely and fully. Because we're not taught to do that as kids. You're not taught to pay attention to your emotions and then what to do with them. What do you do with all that fucking anger, right? What do you do? And it teaches you how to realize that you are in so much more control than you think you are, and like what to do to make your life the way that you want it to. If you've heard the term shadow work, it's shadow work. However, I've refrained from using that term because I frankly think it's a little too woo-woo, like it's a little too much in the spiritual. It needs to be grounded so people can like understand it and like actually want to do it, right? I do think while this work is spiritual, because it is learning to tune into the self and learning how powerful you are and learning how to take charge of your emotions and your internal environment and your experience, that's a spiritual thing, but it's also a very real physical thing. It's so real, it's so physical, and by doing this work, which is why it's called what it's called, it will literally change your life, and you can heal anything that you want to heal. For example, so recently I had my face break out in flat warts, which is so embarrassing. It's so embarrassing. I was appalled when I realized it was flat warts. And I had like a small cluster of flat warts on my forehead. I knew they were there for several years. And then one day I exfoliated my face, and I did not know you were supposed to avoid exfoliating flat warts because it made them spread and it covered my entire face. And at first I had no idea what was happening. My face was itchy. There were small bumps everywhere. And I went to acute care and they're like, I don't know what this is. This is not shingles. It is not dermatitis. It doesn't appear to be hives. It doesn't look like an allergic reaction because it's stayed around for quite a while. At this point, it's over a week now. And I'm freaking the fuck out. And I suspected that it was the flat warts. I suspected that it was fungal. The acute care was like, I think it might be fungal, but I don't know. And they gave me a prescription for steroids, and they're like, if it's fungal, this isn't going to work. So if it doesn't work, you'll have to go back. Because I knew it was fungal, like deep inside, I knew it was fungal. I did not fill the prescription, and I got to work internally. And one of my favorite resources is the book You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. And I immediately flipped through the pages and wanted to see the mindset that was often occurring when someone has warts. The mindset or the fear that is often present with that is fear of being seen, fear of receiving attention that you don't really want, fear of receiving the wrong kind of attention, fear of not being beautiful, right? And so I immediately got to work with affirmations to reinforce the mindset that I actually wanted. And I also was using clove oil on my face because I wanted a more natural a more natural way to combat it rather than using like a steroid cream. I really wanted to see if I could heal this myself. And so I was using clove oil on my face twice a day. I was doing the affirmations. And then something else that I was doing was I was going into meditation and I visualized what my face would look like if it was clear. And I meditated on my DNA and my immune system and concentrated on what my body would feel like if I had zero fungus, zero viruses within my system. And I really focused on what it would feel like to be wart-free, what it would feel like to have my skin clear and even and wart-free, because literally they were everywhere. They were everywhere, and I was so worried. But instead of denying what it was, instead of anchoring my claws into, oh my God, why is this happening to me? Well, I was doing that a little bit. I chose to stop and go into meditation and picture the best case scenario. And I focused my intention on healing my body so it did not have those imperfections anymore. And then I did what I could on the physical plane by putting on the clove oil on my skin. And something interesting happened. Only a week after me starting the clove oil and starting the meditation, which I was only doing maybe once every other day, maybe once every 2 days, I noticed that the warts, that the little mounds that my forehead was completely covered in were gone. I still had some in my cheeks. I could see the discoloration, but they were gone on my forehead. And so that day and the next day, I continued with the meditation. I continued with the clove oil, and I could see them disappearing, starting at the very top of my forehead, going past my eyes and my cheekbones, and finally to my chin. And I was astounded. And at first I was like, oh, was it the meditation? Was it the clove oil? Also, no one's going to believe me. Holy shit. But then I realized something tremendous. So I also had like a regular wart on my thumb. I had one on my thumb and I had one on my calf. They were not flat warts. They were your typical warts that you normally freeze off. It was like this dry mound. It was a normal wart that you would see and recognize. And it's important to note that I never put clove oil on my thumb and on my calf. Not once. I was only concentrating the clove oil on my face because, let's face it, that's what I cared the most about. And at one point, I looked down at my thumb, not even like looking or caring about the wart, but I noticed that it was gone. Like it had just disappeared. It had fallen off. And so I quickly looked to my calf, and that one was also gone. Completely gone. It's been about a month, and my skin is completely clear. There is not a blemish or a wart to be found anywhere. And that is just a small example of what can happen when you take this work seriously, because you are so much powerful than you can even fathom right now. This is why I am choosing to build this program and share it with you so you can change your life too. It's the small things and it's the big things, right? I would consider healing warts on my face to be a pretty small thing, right? It wasn't a life-threatening issue. It was a little itchy, but in the bigger scheme of things, it was pretty non-consequential, right? It was a vanity thing. But imagine what you could do if you took that same concept of going internal, realizing the impermanence of everything, realizing your power, and taking control of your energy and how it presents and telling it what you want, right? Going through the steps of visualizing and creating a calm, healing environment within the body. And so with this program, you will be able to do that and more. And you will know yourself so much more deeply than you do now. And you'll also feel comfortable to be more of you, to show up bigger and louder in however way that you want to show up bigger and louder. And not the ways that you just like egoically want to, but like if you want to be loud about meditating like I do, like me studying Buddhist meditation. If I want to be loud about that, even though I know people aren't going to agree with me, even though I know people aren't going to understand it, like I love that and I want to shout that. Whatever that thing is for you, whatever you love, you will feel so much more comfortable and confident just to go for it. Because what do you have to lose? Because you are the one commanding your experience. You are the one who is repressing or progressing yourself. That's what it's all about. It's recognizing your power and recognizing that you have control, and not like the tight gripped clawed control that we're so used to, but the Buddha presence control that says, I've got this because I'm the creator, because I'm the person who says yes or no, because I'm the person that allows everything into my life, and I'm the person that says, okay, I'm going to do this now, that says I'm going to change now, that says, no, I'm not going to put up with that anymore. You're about to enter your main character energy.